Good morning, Topaz. Today we will be discussing regarding one of the most important clinical entity, that is how to differentiate between the articular and periarticular or soft tissue rheumatism in brief. So let's get started. So first, if there is any musculoskeletal pain, we have to think regarding two different entities. First one, that is articular rheumatism. So in case of articular rheumatism, there are two different entities, that is non-inflammatory and non-inflammatory. In case of that, we will be having OA, that is osteoarthritis, then trauma and osteoporosis. Then comes inflammatory type of lesion. So in case of inflammatory, we have three different entities. First one is monoarthritis, which may be septic or gout related, and then comes oligoarthritis. It may involve spondyloarthropathies and psoriasis, which this group are commonly called as seronegative spondyloarthropathy, where we can find HLA-B27 positive. Then the last entity in inflammatory arthritis is polyarthritis, which we can see in case of rheumatoid arthritis and other connective tissue disorders like SLE. And the second entity of musculoskeletal pain is periarticular or soft tissue rheumatism. Today we will be discussing in detail regarding this periarticular rheumatism and the common conditions which are leading to this soft tissue rheumatism and how we can differentiate it. So this synopsis will be saying clearly regarding what are all the topics we will be discussing in this video. So first it is what is STR, soft tissue rheumatism, and we will be talking regarding the symptoms. Then regarding the clinical examination of how to differentiate the STR or periarticular and articular rheumatism. Then we will be discussing regarding few common soft tissue rheumatism. So what is STR? So you can see this joint image. So here the things which are around the joints like muscle, if there is any problem in the muscle, there is any problem in the bursa, or if there is any problem in the synovial fluid, or if there is any problem in the joint capsule or tendon like tendinitis, and if there is any problem related to the ligament. There is any problem related to all these things around the joint, it will lead to soft tissue rheumatism or periarticular rheumatism. So, in case of our rheumatological practice, around 25% of the cases comes under STR, and we used to have confusion of how to differentiate between this articular and periarticular. So, let's see in detail regarding that. So, what are all the common symptoms we can see in case of STR? First one is localized pain will be there and swelling will be there, and particularly in that certain area, if bursa is involving, we will be having bursitis in that particular location. So here they had given example of olecranon. So in case of olecranon bursitis, we will be having pain in the olecranon process. Then erythema, which may not be apparent lot of time, and tenderness to palpation. So let's see the clinical examination of how to differentiate between STR and articular rheumatism. So on inspection, we will be checking what is happening in the location. So in case of STR, we will be finding local swelling around the joint, but in case of articular rheumatism, we can see joint swelling which will be looking like globular or fusiform. Let me explain how this fusiform will look like. So here also we can find the swelling, but the swelling would be like this pattern. Around the joint we may find wide end, like I'll explain you. So around the joint there will be wide swelling, and towards the end it will be tapering. There won't be exact margin. So this is a form of fusiform joint, and this hand is representing the rheumatoid arthritis or osteoarthritis last stage. So next in inspection, it is very clear localized swelling in STR, and the joint swelling, if it is globular or fusiform, then we have to go for articular rheumatism. Then palpation. So in case of STR, if we are palpating, like whenever we are having a case with joint pain, we have to go for palpation, which will be showing the tenderness. So in case of both STR and articular rheumatism, we will be having tenderness, but there is simple differentiation. Let me tell you that. So here if the tenderness is localized and if it is usually away from the joint line, okay, then it is STR. And if it is like in case of articular rheumatism, we can see joint line tenderness like exactly in the margin of the joints, and we can see crepitations because of the damage in the articular cartilage or bony surfaces. Sometimes in osteoarthritis, in spondyloarthropathies, we can see osteophyte formations. So this may lead to the crepitations that we can see in articular rheumatism. So this is a simple differentiation in the tenderness of both the condition. Then related to the movements. Here in case of articular rheumatism, active and passive movement. Active movement is like voluntarily a doctor is moving the limb of the patient, and passive movement it is done by the patient himself. So in case of articular, both the movements are impaired like painful. And in case of STR, mainly this active motion like active movement will lead to lot of pain, and there will be limitation of movements in case of active movement. Okay, so these are all the important clinical findings which help us to differentiate. So if we are not clear with the clinical finding, then we have to go for the lab investigations according to the location and severity of the condition. So let's see some of the few common type of soft tissue rheumatism. So if it is shoulder, we can see it as frozen shoulder, rotator cuff syndrome, and bicipital tendonitis. Then in case of elbow, that is epicondylitis, we can see tennis elbow, that is lateral epicondylitis, and golfer's elbow, that is medial epicondylitis. These are all the soft tissue rheumatisms in hand. Then in case of bursitis, the most common conditions are subacromial bursitis, and I think this is the largest bursa in the body. Then pre or infrapatellar bursitis, then olecranon bursitis and trochanteric bursitis. In case of tenosynovitis, we can see Deak variant tenosynovitis or trigger finger. Then in case of entrapment syndromes, the most common condition which we used to study and see in clinical practice, that is carpal tunnel syndrome, where we can find the compression of median nerve. Then tarsal tunnel syndrome, where we can find the compression of posterior tibial nerve in the leg. Then comes the most interesting thing, that is meralgia paresthetica, where we will be finding the compression of lateral cutaneous nerve. Even these entrapment syndromes comes under soft tissue rheumatisms. So now we will be discussing few important STR conditions, and here the first thing is frozen shoulder. So frozen shoulder is also called as adhesive capsulitis. You can see in the image like if there is any rheumatism around this capsule. So let's see how this frozen shoulder is happening. So this, in case of this frozen shoulder, we will be having the thickened capsule, and because of the thickening of the capsule, it will lead to the stiffness, and this stiffness will cause pain and stiffness in the shoulder. And we can see this condition most commonly in women around 40 to 60 years of age. And first thing, we have to rule out whether the person is suffering from diabetes or not. So if a patient is having diabetes, they will be having the more risk of developing this frozen shoulder. Then comes the next condition, that is tennis elbow or lateral epicondylitis. In this image, you people can see that in the insertion of all the extensor tendon on the lateral epicondyle, there is any problem that will lead to tennis elbow or lateral epicondylitis. The thing is, don't go with the name. It's like only if a patient is playing tennis, then that will lead to this condition. It's not like that. It's just to represent the overuse of the arm. So here they had explained clearly the forearm muscles and tendons become damaged from the overuse just because of repeated same motions again and again. That will lead to this tennis elbow. And here there will be pain and tenderness on the lateral aspect of elbow. This we can see commonly in our clinical practice. Even homemakers used to say that I am having pain in the lateral epicondyle or medial epicondyle frequently. So that time we have to diagnose the condition. Then let's see regarding the bursitis, that is subacromial bursa. So here in this image you can see this subacromial bursa. It is the bursa and it is considered to be the largest one, and it is lying between the acromion process and the sits muscles, that is rotator cuff, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor and subscapularis. Beside this acromion bursa is between this acromion process and this sits muscle. So let's see how the things are happening. So they had also mentioned that it is located between the acromion and rotator cuff muscles. And because we know that shoulder joint belongs to ball and socket variety. So if there is ball and socket variety, there will be great mobility. There won't be restriction a lot. So this will lead to the movement will lead to the consequent irritation of the bursa also. So this is considered to be the most common cause of shoulder pain, and here they are saying that it is difficult to differentiate it between the most important differential diagnosis like supraspinatus tendinitis or rotator cuff syndrome. So there are few conditions where we can examine how the bursa had been involved in the clinical practice. Let's see that. So how to identify this image, you people can see. So it is called as impingement sign. So how we can elicit this? We can elicit by abduction of the arm above 90 degree. If we are like in this normal position, the bursa won't be getting trapped anywhere. So if we are abducting the arm in 90 degree, surely this bursa will get impinged and it will cause pain in the shoulder. So it is called as impingement sign. And another one sign is there to differentiate between the rotator cuff and rotator cuff syndrome and subacromial bursitis, that is drop arm test. So already we know that we had abducted our arm at 90 degree, which is leading to impingement sign. And if there is pain because of impingement, then it is subacromial bursitis. So here second test is drop arm test. So we have to slowly lower the arm from the full abduction and leads to the weakness. Like suddenly they will be feeling the weakness and the arm will be falling very fast towards the body. So it is suggesting the complete tear of rotator cuff. Already I had told what forms the rotator cuff. It is nothing but sits muscle. You can remember like that. One is supraspinatus, then infraspinatus, then teres minor, then subscapularis. Okay. So next condition we are going to see is trochanteric bursa. So in case of trochanteric bursa, it is a large entity covering 3 or more bursa. So here we will be discussing overall. So here we can see the greater trochanteric bursa, we can see iliopsoas bursa here, and lot of bursas are there. And this bursa usually lies between the hip capsule and the iliopsoas muscle or tendon, and this is considered to be the most common cause of lateral hip pain. Then comes Olecranon bursa. Already we had discussed regarding this. So Olecranon bursa, this is the Olecranon process in the elbow, and the bursa used to be here, and if there is any inflammation that leads to Olecranon bursitis. So here it is also called a student's elbow. So most commonly we can see that student used to sit by putting their elbow on the desk. So that will lead to this irritation and inflammation leading to this condition. Then comes prepatellar bursa. It is also called as housemaid's knee. So here it is located between the skin, like here skin is there and here patella is there, and before that pre-patellar bursa used to exist. And just because of this motion, like during how, like if a housemaid is cleaning the floor, she have to bend and put her elbow, like pre-patellar bursa on this floor directly, so that will lead to the irritation. That's why it is called as housemaid's knee. Okay. Then comes Achilles bursa. So this is one of the condition where we used to confuse it with the calcaneal spur and lot of other conditions too, plantar fasciitis like that. So it is completely called as Achilles bursitis, which we can see like it is located between the calcaneum. This is the calcaneum, and here comes the Achilles tendon. So this is the bursa existing here, and this should not be confused with the traumatic bursa because of the ill-fitting shoes. We have to be clear with this condition. And in clinical practice, we can find people exactly pointing towards this area and saying, I am having severe pain and I can't walk in the morning. So we should not confuse it with calcaneal spur and this bursitis. Then comes tendinitis, another one important entity. So here there are, in case of tendinitis, there are two different tendinitis. One is intratendinous lesion, that is there will be decreasing perfusion of the tendon associated with microtrauma. So just because of microtrauma, what our body will do, our body will try to do the repair, and this repair calcium salts used to get deposited, and which we can see in the x-ray, and this can be seen as calcific tendinitis. And this we can see most commonly in the areas of supraspinatus, that is in shoulder, that is rotator cuff tendon, and gluteus medius are minor areas. Then comes the second type, that is peritendinous inflammation, and it is also called as tenosynovitis, and it is mainly because of the increased friction in that particular area. So if there is increased friction, that will lead to the inflammation and pain. So the most important conditions were De Quervain tenosynovitis and trigger finger. So let's see regarding the De Quervain tenosynovitis. So, this is mainly the tendons inserted at the base of the thumb, and if there is any problem with this, this will lead to the De Quervain tenosynovitis, mainly in the base of thumb are irritated or constricted, that we know. Then, mainly in the distal radial head. So, next comes trigger finger. So, here in trigger finger, this image will explain you clearly. There will be pain, stiffness and sensation of locking and catching. So just because of this locking and catching sensation in the finger, it is called as tenosing tenosynovitis. Here how things are happening. This flexor tendon used to pass through this A1 pulley, and if there is any problem in the A1 pulley or any injury or damage, that will lead to the trigger finger. So we can easily identify this condition by remembering regarding this A1 pulley, which is causing this trigger nature of this condition. Then how we can easily identify how things are happening, like we will be using Finkelstein maneuver. Here we can see pain on motion frequently, and how this maneuver can be performed, we can be like in as seen in the image, like there is APL, that is abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis. So here in case of this, we can extend the hand like this, like extension of this hand leads to pain, warm swelling and tenderness around this area. And since and the most difficult condition to differentiate is inflammatory arthritis with the De Quervain tenosynovitis. This maneuver is mainly used to find out regarding the De Quervain tenosynovitis, because we know that the problem mainly occurs in the base of the finger. So just try to remember this Finkelstein maneuver. So if we are extending, there will be warmth, there will be pain, and there will be swelling and tenderness. The important DD is inflammatory arthritis. Then comes one of the most important entrapment syndrome, that is carpal tunnel syndrome. Here we know that the problem is mainly because of the compression of the median nerve, and the image we can see the regarding the distribution of the median nerve around the thumb, forefinger, middle finger and the ring finger, half of the ring finger. So here already we know it's because of the compression of the median nerve and the causation. Both primary are there and secondary is there. Primary is mostly idiopathic and secondary it is mainly because of certain activities like typing, knitting, thumb rolling and kneading. So few other systemic medical conditions were also associated with CTS, that is carpal tunnel syndrome. Those are inflammatory arthritis, pregnancy, gout, diabetes mellitus, hypothyroidism, amyloidosis and local tumors which are associated with carpal tunnel syndrome. So once if you know the distribution of the median nerve, with the help of symptoms we can easily identify this, and along with that we have few tests in the clinical practice to identify that. Let's see that in detail. So diagnosis, there will be early morning stiffness, and as I had told, depending on the distribution there will be tingling and burning, that is sensory loss. Sensory loss we can see, and we can see problem in the fine motor function also. So first test to differentiate this condition is Phelan sign. So what we have to do here now, we have to put the arm in this hyperflexion and we have to maintain the same attitude for 60 seconds, that is around 1 minute. So if there is any compression of median nerve, that will develop the symptoms of tingling and fine motor loss in the area of the median nerve distribution. Then comes the second test, that is Tinel sign. Here as per the image we have to do the percussion of the nerve directly on the wrist area, the ventral aspect of the wrist, and because of this direct pressure it will lead to the pain and paresthesia because it is already under compression, and if we are, it is like we are aggravating the condition, so that will lead to the pain and paresthesia and the median nerve distribution, that is in the thumb, forearm, middle finger and half of the ring finger. Then the last condition of today's topic is plantar fasciitis. This is also one of the important condition which we used to confuse with calcaneal spur and that Achilles bursitis. So here we can see tenderness along the plantar aponeurosis, mainly at the insertion of calcaneum. So calcaneal spur and plantar fasciitis are exactly difficult to diagnose. So here we can see pain occurring on the weight bearing areas here, here and here. And if we are percussing the heel, we can identify that pain there. And radiologically, we may see the ossification of insertion, that is the calcaneal spur, which we were discussing. And just because of the friction and damage, this heel spur used to get formed. Okay, we had discussed a lot regarding this STR and articular rheumatism in today's video. So try to identify or examine clinically in order to reduce the cost of investigation. So because in case of STR, there is no need to go for an extensive investigations. So we can make our treatment cost effective in case of STR. And if we are finding it to be an articular, we have to arrive at the diagnosis and we have to manage the case according to that condition. So thank you so much.